Hi, I'm Susan Lennart. I have built jewelry for 35 years. I've built from really low-end commercial lines to medium-end commercial lines, all the way to museum exhibits to runway. And I love all different markets. I love teaching and education. And I'm here today because I started a whole program of mentoring and teaching intentional metalsmithing, which is a Silversmithing Simplified. And that's what I want to show you today. It's like I actually created a whole toolkit that I have used to build jewelry all around the world. In fact, in a couple days, I'm packing up my nomadic toolkit with me, and I am building when I am not in my studio. I have everything I need in my studio. I have found in life that when you kind of jump into a situation where you don't have everything perfect, every single tool that you have, it brings you into a creative space, into building authentically from your heart. And that's what I'm about, and that's what my whole program, Intentional Metalsmithing, is about. So here, you guys, I have a little fun thing for you guys to do here. And this is just this is at the staple of all of my jewelry that I do. And these are end caps for putting crystals in, for putting sticks in, pencils, anything. I've used this for fiber. I've used this throughout. I've built lines for this for Banana Republic and Taylor, and Nordstrom, and use this technique here. So this is really fun, super simple, but this is how to take just a fundamental core technique in silversmithing and spring it into your heart's desire. What are your personal sacred objects? This is your chance here. I show you all different ways that I use this very, very simple fundamental technique. So I hope you guys enjoy. It's just from the very beginning. This is yours. This is for free. This is to jumpstart you on your own program. If you guys like this and you're interested, please consider joining me in Intentional Metalsmithing. I'm looking for a small group of students who are either beginners or already on their path or even advanced. And we just go through, and it's like we learn to use our own personal, authentic techniques, and I mentor you along the way through my 6 and 7 courses. I actually put in an extra course in here, and this is a 6-week mentorship, and I mentor you all the way through, and it really is mind-changing for just exploring your creativity and getting into your real self. So anyways, please enjoy this technique. Please enjoy. Maybe I'll see you in Intentional Metalsmithing. Okay, let's get started in the studio. I am using a 1/4 inch sterling silver strip. I like using sterling silver rather than fine silver because it is stronger and holds up better. And when I'm using these for end caps. So you want the straightest edge. I'm gonna bring this around and fit it. And you want the straightest edge, so I'm just gonna hit it a couple times with my bastard file that I have on hand just to make sure I get the straightest edge. I'm here working with the nomadic toolkit today, so you guys will get to really see the nomadic toolkit in action. There we go, I have a nice straight edge. And now I'm gonna go ahead and take this around. And I just start with a little bit of a curve with my round nose pliers. That helps me get things going from the beginning. And I just have an object around where I want to fit my bezel around. If you do have a stick or a crystal, you fit it right around that. Here I'm doing an open form end cap where I can put fiber or a feather or put something in later on with a different type of closure called drawing a bead that I'll show you later on. So I'm just very gently going exactly around this object to create a wall form, and you can see I have it all the way around. Please don't mind my dirty fingernails. That's what happens when you're a jeweler, right? Okay. And now I'm going to take a marker. I'm marking this exactly where I want to cut this. So here's the thing, is that you really want to be exact, and I need the best straight line as possible. That really is the secret to success in creating the bezel end cap form. So I actually just use my tin snips. This gives me the best cut possible, right on the line. There we go. And then I want to really take this end and make sure it's nice and straight. You see how it's curved over a little bit? When you use snips, sometimes you have to go back in and do a little bit of damage control to get your ends nice and flat again. There's my bastard file. Just getting it nice and flat. So when I roll these two ends together, they will meet exactly. It doesn't matter now that I have the perfect round shape. My only objective right now is to just have the two ends join and meet each other perfectly. I don't have to have the shape of my object at this time. So I usually, what is important is that the two ends butt right up against each other. You don't want them coming to like a pyramid or a point. That will actually give you, it'll catch the light and you'll always be able to see that seam. So you want your seam as flush as possible. So I'm actually using my pliers just to pinch these down together so they join beautifully. And you can see that beautiful join right there. And I am going to start with, this is my soldering board, and you know, I actually like to use pick soldering, so I'm going to show you with a little bit of pick soldering. And I am going to dip this right into the flux. You know about the flux when you go over the toolkit. If you don't know about the tools yet, you can get onto my pneumatic toolkit, and I will talk about my philosophy, where I talk about my philosophy of the tools and soldering. So I'm going to start with hard. Just one little chip of hard. I put a little extra flux on there just in case. And I put flux on my paintbrush. So when I pull out a chip of hard, you want to start with hard, and then you move to medium, and then you move to easy. So I have a few chips here, sprayed a little bit of flux on there. And this is my pick. And I am using the butane torch for the pneumatic torch through this whole process. So you guys will get to see really the process of the pneumatic torch. I'm going to heat my end. I have my lights really bright, but I do have my flame on. So I'm heating the end of my piece. Balling it up. You can see how I've created a ball on the end of my pick. And I am coming in, and I'm going to lay this right on my, there you go. You can see the heat. I'm going to lay this right. You can see the flux turning into that chalky color. That's what you want to see. The flux protects your silver so it does not have, there we go. Whoop, a little bit over on that seam. I've got to push it over. If I, now, because I didn't have it on the seam, way I'm solving that is just to bring, see, you guys get to see a nice little mistake. Remember when I talk about mistakes? So the solder is coming over to the center, and I'm going to hit this exactly right here. And then I'm going to bring, this will just be a little bit of filing. But I can still, once I have all this solder on here, I can still bring the solder to the inside and get that filed off. So my seam is done beautifully. Voila. And I dip it in the self-pickling flux because what that does, it helps just pull off some of the fire scale. Every single silversmith and artist has their shortcuts. Mine is that I dip in the flux because it takes off the fire scale. And then I can solder multiple times without pickling it. Now I'm making the flush. I want my end to be very, very flush. And now it is time for me to curve my, okay, no, I'm going to actually just get this nice and sanded off. What I'm doing is I'm sanding off that extra solder you saw in my mistake. So really, you guys, remember, anytime you make a mistake with your silversmithing, there's always corrections you can do. One of the things that I like to say is, look, it's sterling silver. Every time we go in and solder it, there's a little bit copper that will come out. And here I'm shaping it and shaping it. I want it to be in the most beautiful shape. And so your silver is never wasted. If you completely do something wrong and trash your whole piece and burn it, don't be afraid, because you still have as much silver as you started with. You just recycle it and you can start from the beginning. So now I have my piece shaped exactly the way I want it. So you want to make sure that it's shaped. I'm going to take a little bit more of that solder off the seam so it's beautiful. It's easier to make your corrections along the way than to wait until the end. Let's just get that filed off nicely, and then I'll get it polished in the end, and you should not be able to even see the seam once it's done. Getting my edges flush. You want to see how it looks silver on the bottom of my bezel. You really want it to be that bright, shining silver everywhere, and then you know that your piece is flush and you're ready to go on to the next step. Voila. Now I'm going to work on my screen. The screen helps to lift my piece that needs to be soldered, lifts it up a little bit so I can get up under it, and it's almost like I'm going to be annealing with my, underneath my jewelry piece. Okay, I'm taking a 1/2-inch sheet metal. That's a 24 gauge. These both were 24 gauge. The 1/4 inch strip that I used as a bezel wire, and then this is for the top of my bezel, and it's a 1/2 inch 24 gauge sterling silver strip. And I'm just cut off a little piece of that. I want to make sure it's nice and sanded and clean. You could either pickle it or use a little sandpaper. They both get your metal clean. You want to take off any oils, any fire scale that's on there, any dirt. In order to have successful soldering, every piece that's being soldered has to be clean, clean, clean. And what do you mean by clean? By clean, I mean it has to be either sanded or pickled and brushed, but clean. So even though my whole piece wasn't pickled and has fire scale on the side of my bezel wire, it is still clean, because you saw the silver that came into my piece. You saw the silver that was on the edge. See how you want to make sure you pinch it and you don't see any air on the bottom. Now, when I heat my piece, it'll relax a little bit. And it will relax a little bit. And so if there's a tiny bit of air when it's not being pinched, that's okay. But when you pinch it, you need to make sure that both ends fit perfectly. I'm using a medium solder now. So I'm putting a little bit of medium solder in the center. I want to keep it away from the outside. I just want a tiny little bit in there. I have probably about 3 or 4 chips. And this is such a small piece. You just want it touching the edge. You don't want to waste your solder. So just making sure it's touching the edge. I have my silver piece right on the edge of my screen, because I'm going to hold it and go up and under. There we go. So the first thing you want to do is dry up the flux. Your solder might skip around a little bit. There we go. I see how I'm lifting and I'm going up and under my sheet metal. And you can see the flame, and you'll get to see right when the solder flows. Voila! See that little silver around the edge? That is a beautiful, beautiful seam with a medium solder. The inside is clean, and you just want to wait a couple seconds for your piece to settle. You don't want to pull it. You want to count to 3 before you quench it in water. There we go. You can see that solder came up on the side of my heart, but that's okay. Once I get this cut, I'm just going to cut this with tin snips today. It's a nice, easy curve. When you don't have complexity in your pieces, you can just use your tin snips and get most of this cut off. I just get really close in. Now, tin snips you can buy it from the jeweler store. They don't have to look like this. You can buy it from the jeweler supply store. You can buy it from the dollar store. They're called bone cutters. They're in the kitchen section. And they literally are made just to cut. These are paper cutting scissors, but they work really well. So, with your snips, you can decide. Okay, I'm going to file the bottom or sand the bottom. I'm sanding the bottom so I get a nice flush edge in this way. And for me, because I'm not taking the time to pickle right now, I can just sand my edges and file my edges smooth. So I got up as close as I could, to the edges. I'm holding it with pliers so I can use my big file to get around. When I'm in my studio, I use my jeweler's wheel or I use my Dremel tool, but I really want to show you guys this without electricity, just the simplicity of getting this done. I do use a little bit of pickle, of course, in the end to clean it up, brush it up, and get it clean. But we are not there yet. So I'm just filing. You can never do enough polishing and finishing and filing, right? So see, I'm getting the top clean because I'm going to show you next putting a... how to make a little jump ring and solder a jump ring onto the top of my end cap. This is just the real practical of jewelry, the real practical side of things. I love picking out the objects and setting the stones. That's the exciting part for me. Nice and flush on top. You always want the best work that you can. And sandpaper does a lot. I think this is a 220. It's a wet and dry sandpaper. So you can actually, if your objects are wet, they still work to sand. They still work to sand down. So you can use, this is perfect for the Silversmith, wet and dry sandpaper. You can see, I like showing real time. I'm putting in a good amount of time. Okay. I just have a little bit on top that needs to be clean. That's exactly where my jump ring is going to go. This is actually a scratch pen. These are so fabulous. I use them all the time. They're jewelry supplies. People ask me about these all the time. They're on the Nomadic Toolkit also, so you can take a look at that. I feel it's pretty essential. All of these tools that I'm using today are on the Nomadic tool set, which you can download for free. We'll have the link at the end. Now, I'm going to use a 16 gauge round wire. And I am just going to take my large round needle nose pliers and I am going to this is how you make jump rings. Pick a size and I'm just keeping them the same size by moving the last jump ring that I made. I'm moving it up the pliers. So I usually will make 4 or 5 at a time just to make it simple. And I'm going to stop right where I started. So you can see I'm going to lead right into, I'm not going to waste any silver and I'll be able to get 4 jump rings out of this. There we go. Perfect. They should all be around the same size or you can make them exactly the same size. So as I'm opening this, I'm checking to see one end sits flush and one end usually has a pinch to it. There we go, nice and clear. So I'm going to just snip off the edges of both sides to make sure that they both have a very, very, like a tabletop edge on them so I can fit them together perfectly and beautifully. Because again, just like the bezel, every time your silver every time you're going to solder a join, you need to have the perfect join. There you go. See that? Such a close join. This is going to help me out. So I'm going to actually I don't need a screen for this. I'm going to put a little bit of hard solder on the end of this to solder it together. Yep, there's my flex. Flex my piece. I use when I make my jump rings, there's a 2-part process. I put a hard solder on to join the jump ring together. This is important to hold it together. And then I do an EZ to solder it onto my bezel cap. The reason I do this, if you try to do this all in one full swoop with an EZ, you end up, your jump ring will not stay together with solder. It's more difficult. So this is what I would suggest, is really just getting with a hard solder, put both pieces together. I'm gonna again use, this is a pick soldering where I just hit it with the end, create a little ball, bring it over. You have to have a pretty steady hand. I rest my elbow on the table to make sure that, elbow on the table to make it the easiest for me, and I'm bringing it right up to this joint. See how I'm right on there? There you go. Right on the joint. This should be beautiful. And then I want to kind of heat the whole piece. I was just drying the end cap there. And I just want to heat the whole piece, and then especially, there we go. Okay, bring it over. See how I brought that solder over? Okay. A little bit stuck. Okay. Okay, these are my locking pliers, and I'm holding them with my locking pliers so I can have them, and I have elbow on the table. And I'm going to put a little bit of easy. There's my easy chips. I've got them all in different containers. There's my easy. And I'm just going to put a little bit of easy, let it flow on the top of my end cap. There we go. Same process. I know that was a little bit out of the camera. You can see my flux is getting a little thick. It starts turning into that powdery. There we go. There's my, now watch. It doesn't matter that it flowed a little bit, because as soon as you get your piece on here, it will all be attracted to where the join is. And all your solder will flow back to the join. Voila. I have a beautiful, beautiful join. I know it's an ugly color, and I have a little bit more filing to do on the edge, but this is time for pickling. So I actually put this in the pickle, which you guys have this in the first part, Alchemy of Soldering or Soldering Bezels, you guys have for free. After I pull it out of the pickle, I am using my steel brush, and I'm scratching off any of the excess. Here are the two end caps that I finished. This one, actually, I put a little darkener and sanded it up a little bit. This one is right from being filed. It's that beautiful color. A lot of people really like these beautiful, beautiful colors. So I want to show you two things. One, actually, if you wanted to have that little bit of darkener on it, what you do is, this is a little bit of liver sulfur that is mixed. It smells like sulfur. So it's actually non-toxic. I like using non-toxic in my studio. And I can just dip it in here. It's the oxygen that changes the color. So you're just gonna dip it in and out, let the oxygen get it nice and brown. And then what I'm gonna do is quench it. It's the stinkiest smell. We don't need that smell here, but then now I've got this nice darkness to my piece. So then what I do is, I'm just gonna grab my pliers. I wipe it off with my cloth, nice and clean. The nice thing about liver of sulfur too is that it gives you a coating of oil that really gives you a shine. This is a bronze brush, and this brush actually gives you a little lighter, it gives you a brighter shine. I like using the steel brush when I have a lot to get off and get it clean, but this one is a good one. And if you use some large, long strokes with polishing, you really get a nice, beautiful shine on your metal, like this. So I promised you I was going to show you tassels today. There's two ways to put tassels onto a piece. This piece, and I'm going to show you just with this little tiny piece. This is the exact same thing. You can make all different sizes and shapes of these bezel tops, but I'm going to use this little one that I made, and I am already put together just this little bit of fiber, and this is what I do a lot in my work, and I have it knotted, so I'm going to cut it right here. And it actually is the perfect size for this little piece right here. So the glue, this is called, E6000 is a jeweler's glue. And why is this called a jeweler's glue? This actually has, it's a springier glue, it's a thicker glue. It's nice and thick on here. So what happens is, if you are going to use glue and glue a piece together, which there really is another way that I'll show you that would be technically right, which is drawing a bead to hold this in here. But if you can't, for things like end caps and this here, you really want to use a jeweler's glue, because for one, it's not, if you put a super glue in here, it would be so stiff, it would make your fiber really stiff, or your sticks or anything super stiff, and then it would crack off. So the nice thing about this is that it actually is almost like a rubber cement, where it pulls. And you know, so if you have this piece glued together and someone pulls the string, it'll literally stretch it out like a rubber band and go back inside. So that's why this is called the jeweler's glue. Also, if I had to repair this, if this broke and I had to do a repair, I could easily just, you know, loosen up, get some air under the glue and disassemble it. So that's why this is called a jeweler's glue. So come on in close. And I'm going to show you putting this inside. Look, Adam and I are working good together now. My hands are dirty, but, and this, I keep a top on here, but see how nice and thick this end is? I'm just going to put this all the way inside.
I can't see how thick it is. There you
go. Oh, thank you. Good thing I have is somebody watching me do this right now. Okay, there we go. So it's nice and thick. So what I want to do is I want to fill it up as much as I can, you know, and you want to get it leveled out. So the way E6000 works is by keeping the glue evenly all the way around. And then I'm just going to gently put this inside. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll just work with my tweezers to get it a little deeper inside here, make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. And this is a water base, so it'll come right out of your pieces. And then that's just going to lay right here to dry. And it will be completely separate from my strings. My thread will not be immersed in this glue, so it works out beautifully. And that's what you do with the jeweler's glue. Okay, this is the end cap that we put together, that I built for you guys, and I want to show you a way on drawing a bead for attachment that really makes it beautiful. You actually, here's one that I just finished right now, but you don't have to have, and you guys can see, but this is a close-up. You don't have to have an exact fit. You have a little bit of movement in here, so it really makes it nice. So to start with, I have got just about 2 inches, inch and a half of 22 gauge sterling silver round wire, and I am just going to draw a little bead on one end of it. So let me get this in the photo where you can see. I'm just going to make a little ball on this. There is a whole science, whole chapter that I wrote on connecting with drawing a bead, but it really is just making this little edge right here. So what I'm going to do, that's going to be used as a pin to hold it together. So I always make this ahead of time, the pin ahead of time. So with this piece now, what I'm going to do, I need to drill a hole in here. So I am going to actually grab my pliers like this and decide if I like coming it through the front or the side, you know, what angle I like this in. And for my drill, I have got a 1/16 drill. So I'm going to actually start by just resting it right on the top here and going in with my drill. 1/16 or 52 bit from the jeweler's store. I'm going very, very gently. Whoop. Whoop. I have to polish that out later. Okay, there we go. I can see it going through. Now, once it's through the top part, I am going to just hold it from the side and I'm going to bring it all the way through, but I want to make sure my drill is straight up and down. I don't want to have it curved or to the side. So I want to make sure it's straight up and down. Okay? And now I've got it all the way through, and I am going to bring put my stick that I want to use in here. And you guys, you know, or an object, anything that you want to put in here. Okay? So now I just have to drill through my stick, and I'm going to keep my head pin near me because that's going to hold everything in place like a pin. So I'm going to have to hold the top of this here, but you guys will get to see it nice and close. And I'm just going to go through the stick. Everything else is drilled. So it'll be nice and easy. See how quick that was? I'm not going to move anything until I put my pin in place. There we go. And I've got my pin in place, so it's holding everything so it doesn't spin around on me. And I can see this is a little bit too long. You really just need about, you know, depending on if you're keeping it loose or not, I've got about probably a ½ inch left. And what you want to do next, if I'm using fiber or something like a stick, I want to make sure that my stick, I usually can get it wet first, or fiber. You always want to get it wet because I'm going to have a torch right up next to it. So I just dip this in water, and my stick is now immersed, so it can take a little bit more heat than it could if it was dry. So you always want to hold it straight up and down and away from your object. And it's done. Quench it. And now you've got some beautiful, such a small little area. You've got some beautiful attachments here. They're very, you know, they have a lot of movement here. They won't come apart because they're literally drilled straight through, and a lot of movement. And this is what these end caps are so perfect with. So if you love this video and you love the whole idea of expanding into your creativity as a jeweler or learning to be a jeweler, you could be a beginner, you could be an intermediate, and you could be advanced. I teach creativity along with hardcore techniques. So jump down below. You can check out Intentional Metalsmithing. I'm looking to mentor a small handful of people to really jumpstart you into your own personal creative being, on being a silversmith and being a jeweler, on selling your jewelry, on getting into your real self and learning so many new techniques that can expand. I'd love to mentor you. Jump down below and you'll also get more information on Intentional Metalsmithing, which is my course that I will only teach this year one time. I haven't pulled it out since 2019. I've had beautiful reviews. And also jump down below, you'll find the link to the Nomadic Toolkit if you don't have it yet. So I hope to see you guys in my course. It starts September 2nd with mentoring. I do 6 weeks of mentoring. I can't wait to meet you. I can't wait to have you on board. I have a very affordable plan. Jump in now while it's super cheap, and it will be going up in price in a couple weeks. I have a payment plan. I really like to make it affordable for you. So let me know if there's any problems in not getting signed up. And it's going to be really fun, which creativity is fun. Learning a new technique is fun. Creativity heals you guys. Whew. I'd love to have you in my group. I hope to see you there.